Freestanding homes versus apartments. We talk about that all the time. Big debate, lots to talk about there. More homes for sale, but listings can't keep up. It's age old. Demand continues to outstrip supply. We'll talk a lot about that. Victorian Budget. Greg was a very tired man last week. He came with me on the federal budget tour. This week I took Lucas with me. Didn't run him as ragged because there wasn't quite as much to see and do. However, we did run him ragged, and he's got a lot of intel to run through with you guys. A lot of exciting things happened there. First homeowner grant. Those of you that tune in regularly will know that we mentioned this program was ending. It's a state government thing, 30 June. It's been renewed. A few changes in there. Some will be good, some will be bad, depending on how you look at it. So we're going to run through those. And lastly, affordability. We always talk about this. Very interesting. Good to run through a lot of these stats and really understand them, particularly at times when prices are going up. So we'll talk a lot about that. All right, let's just run through what's happened in the last 7 days. Last weekend's auction results, stellar result again. You can see Sydney was 80%, Melbourne coming in just under 80%. Other ones going really well. Again, those of you that are wondering how reliable are these statistics in terms of the number of homes, what you'll see here is that both Sydney and Melbourne were more than 1,000 auctions, which is what we call a Super Saturday. So really, really strong result. As we said, often people wonder the depth of the market. We talk about this a lot in terms of some of these regional areas and some of the smaller states. You can see here, Tasmania only had 3 auctions, hence they didn't even register a result because there's really not enough to see. Even you can see Perth only had 23 auctions. So whilst that's a great clearance rate at just under 69%, not really showing the depth in the market. When you're seeing more than 1,000 listings up and going through for auction, you can really rely on that. So this strength that we've been seeing all this year is fantastic. And I think the guys are going to talk more about it. I'm sure you've got a lot of questions that we'll go through as we get stuck into the question time section. Okay, looking at the leading indicators, realestate.com, the largest real estate portal here in Australia, produces these stats as to what they're seeing, the activity occurring on their website. So the first one we're going to go through is for buyers. This is the national trend. So we're seeing demand is staying relatively steady. How they determine this, it's a little bit subjective, so don't read too much into this as opposed to the actual auction results. But really, they're just saying what kind of action are people taking on their site? Are they actually looking at phone numbers, calling agents, downloading floor plans, going back to the same listing over and over? Typically, there will be a few tire kickers, but what we see is that means there's real intent from these people. They're serious about thinking about buying and turning up to open homes. Go across to Victoria. Again, seeing slightly better increases than across the national. As always, we mentioned, Victoria is probably running 3 to 4 months behind the rest of the states, given that we did have a stage 2 lockdown, during the latter part of last year. Moving on to rental, again, exact same sort of drivers. Interesting here, the main difference we're seeing is there's a bit of a widening gap between apartments and houses. Nationally, it's going up. Very hard to compare this to last year's trend, both for rental and for sales, given that at this time last year we were in the lockdown. So we really just look at what the trend's seeing. Steady increases there. Likewise here, again, a little bit stronger in Victoria for the same reasons as we see for sales. So I think just wrapping up there, I'd say we're actually seeing in transactions, fantastic results again, and forward looking in these leading indicators that we're seeing in both rental and sales, looking pretty strong as well. So if anyone was concerned or hadn't read the newspaper, hadn't tuned in for at all this year and didn't realize the market was hot, it's hot and it's continuing to look like it's going to keep going that way. Okay, those of you that haven't joined us before and it's your first time, welcome. Particularly those of you on Facebook, because I know you might have just been scrolling through looking for cats jumping on cucumbers. What you'll see here is we like to really focus on answering your questions. And really the idea behind this is that we want to improve your knowledge. So the question that I ask you here is what's more important? Is it information? So all of those news sources, content you see out there, articles from people, news stories, TV news stories, or it is actual underlying knowledge. Someone on the line there, I think I only have off mute someone on the panel. Someone want to answer that for me?
I think
knowledge.
Yeah.
There you go. Good. You all jumped in. Correct. Knowledge. I did give away the answer a little bit there, so I apologise. It's about knowledge. So as I said to you, what we want to do is help you build a database of what we call actionable knowledge. So information is organised data about something, and there's a lot of crappy information, and there's a lot of fantastic, great, credible source of information. But knowledge is an understanding either through education or through experience. So, like all of us on the panel here, we've been doing it for, 20. Greg, in his case, is probably 40 years. Have been doing this for a long time. And with that experience comes an understanding as to what things mean, what we should be looking for, and how to deal with that. So for those of you that maybe are looking to buy your first home, or perhaps moving into your first investment property, or just looking to upgrade, you may not have had quite the same level of experience, and you might not know how to cut through all of that white noise that's out there to understand that information, what is good, what is bad, but most importantly, what does it mean for you? Because what I might be looking for and the buying signals that I might be getting could be very different to you. So that's what we're about here today. Answer your questions, give you some guidance, and then hopefully if you got value from today, then really what I suggest is at the end of this session, I'm going to show you how we can move forward together and hopefully add more value to your buying journey. All right, so that's enough. I've been going on here. I can't see the screen anymore, but I believe I'm getting close to 8 or 9 minutes. So who am I? If I didn't introduce myself at the start or you missed it, my name is James Maitland. I'm the General Manager here at Salvo, and I've been doing this for more than 20 years, and I've helped create more than 11,000 homes for people just like you on the call today. I'm joined on the panel today. I have Greg Arbeck, Jack Jan, and Lucas Karras. Between us, we've got almost a century of experience. So a lot of experience, great understanding. We're all experts in this area, and hopefully we can answer your questions and give you that guidance that you've been looking for. If you haven't done this before on a Zoom webinar, really, really straightforward. The way you'll get the most value is get involved, ask the questions, get involved here, tell us what you're thinking, and that's how we can deliver the most value to you. How to do it? Simple. There's 2 ways. On the bottom of your bar, this is obviously only for Zoom people. I did mention at the start, if you're on Facebook, we can't answer your questions live, but feel free to drop a comment in there and we'll get back to you. And really the best way to do is to join Zoom live next week. So you can either raise your hand if you're got confidence and you want to come and speak in the panel, that's great. If you don't, put it in the Q&A. I can already see on my screen just down here, although it's small, I can already see a ton of questions coming up. So I've been memorizing those and I'll go through those in a moment. All right, so let's get stuck into the questions. First up, it's been a tough, long last 6 or 7 days for Lucas. I've been running non-stop for about the last 3 weeks, from federal budgets to state budgets. We're obviously, those of you that don't know, Salvo, we're based here in Victoria. So this is very much about the Victorian state budget. I don't profess to be an expert everywhere, so we're just going to tell you about our local market. A lot of interesting things came through. Lucas, I ran you ragged from pillar to post, not quite as good as I did to Greg because it wasn't quite as enjoyable. You had many a McDonald's pit stop along the way. We learnt a lot. How did you enjoy the experience this week?
Look, it was interesting, very informative, and I'm excited. I think this is really, things are looking really good.
Okay, what was one of the key things that, or what was your favourite takeaway you learnt over the last 7 days that you can let everyone know as to what was exciting or what you found the most informative from all these sessions we went to?
Look, I just believe the incentives that are being sort of extended. I find that very exciting because a lot of people were worried that they might miss out if they don't act by end of June. So it's good to see that for the first home buyers, single parents, there's a lot of incentives there and giving them a good opportunity to get into the property market finally.
Okay, good. All right, so before we get into that, let's park that for a moment because I can see a lot of questions coming up here. Those of you that did tune in a few weeks ago will know that we said the first homeowners grant expired here in Victoria in 30 June, and we didn't have any clarity as to then at that point where that's going. Can someone let everyone on the call know where are we with that? Is that being extended, and are there any changes if it has?
Yes, James, the first owner grant in Victoria has been extended, which is great. Of course, it has a little bit change as expected, but the only change is for the regional Victoria. For the first home buyer in...
So sorry, Jack, just to clarify, the program has been extended, so there's no stop in it in terms of there will still be a grant,
Yes,
but you're saying there are some changes to the regional part of the grant.
Yes, exactly. Just the only change for the regional of the grant is that regional Victoria used to eligible to receive 20,000 grant. Now is half of that grant is only received the 10,000 grant. For the metropolitan in Melbourne, Victoria, there's no change at all.
Okay, so everyone that was thinking about a sea or a country change, perhaps the fact that we've been talking about it a lot here, driven mainly by the news sources about how everyone was moving to the country, albeit the stats didn't necessarily show that. Perhaps that was a factor in the decision there to decrease the regional grant from being double that of Metro to make it equal at 10 grand, perhaps.
I think you're pretty right there, yeah. So that would be what I think that's what their motivation would probably be, because there's been a huge drive out that way to now even the odds, I would say, yeah.
So Greg, if you weren't onto about your 10th home, you've obviously made the switch from country Victoria to live here in one of our amazing apartments. If you were a first home buyer at that point, there wouldn't be the same disincentive for you anymore. No,
well then you go, well, hang on. You know, beforehand everybody was thinking, let's go and live out in the country, and we're going to get this 20,000 grand. Well, that's not happening anymore, which is it's leveling the playing field.
Okay. All right. So look, those of you, if you're not clear, the simple thing is here in Victoria, if you purchase any home and you are a first home buyer, regardless of where it is in the state, you will be eligible for $10,000 cash grant from the Victorian government. So that's good news for those first home buyers out there that continues to be there. And I think that is a great incentive. There's a number of other great incentives here as well with stamp duty and so forth for first home buyers that we might get into in a moment. However, I can see a few questions coming through here in terms of forecasts and what to expect for the property market over the next 12, 18 months. I think what might be interesting, we might get into more detail, but Lucas, we actually saw the Victorian Treasurer surprisingly put out some key stats in terms of, what the local Treasury department said they were expecting in terms of actual growth and what they were expecting to occur over the next rest of the forecast period. What did the Treasurer have to say about that? Look,
obviously with the strong competition that's happening, the interest rates, the upbeat sentiment, the government incentives is pushing up prices quite a lot. From October to April, prices increased 8.6%. I mean, that is a huge growth, and the Treasurer said that they expected the increase of prices to be tipped at 13% for this year.
All right, so I can do simple maths. We were 8%. We're expecting 13%, so that's more than 20% over what, 18 months, 24-month period?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so that's great. So those of you that were wondering, what are we expecting here? That's what the governments, as you know, they like to downplay everything unless it comes to the re-election fund, which we're not in election mode at this stage. Okay, so what about affordability? We were talking about first home buyers. I've seen a few questions coming through in terms of, I can't afford to buy it. The $10,000 grant doesn't cut it. Affordability has always been a big issue. With those kind of increases in prices, it'd be pretty clear to say, if a property was 2 years ago, 500,000, then with these kind of increases today, that could be 600,000. Push that out to freestanding homes that, are pretty much all starting price around and very close to that $1 million. It makes it pretty hard for a first homeowner to get into the market. What are we seeing there? What's some of the stats that are coming through? How much money do you need? Or, if you do have a deposit of, say, I don't know, call it $100,000, what can you afford? What are the options?
That's very interesting, James. I think for the first homeowner, they also wants to know, look, this is how much money I got a saving in the bank, and this is where I want to live. Can I afford to buy for that? So this is very interesting figure shows in Sydney and Melbourne is very limited option for those first home buyer who has $100,000 in the bank and are willing to put out for the 20% deposit. And in Sydney, it's only 6 suburbs they can afford to pay with 100,000 deposit. 100,000 saving as 20% deposit. In the Melbourne, is only 10 suburbs they afford to pay, which all about at least 40 kilometers away from the city center.
Okay, so first home buyers typically tend to be the younger generation looking to get into their first home. That love to live, sort of in Metro Melbourne, the city area, and so forth, inner areas, and also in Sydney. Pretty much impossible if they want to do something with a 20% deposit, even if they've got $100,000 saved up, which in itself is no mean feat.
Yes, it's very hard recently with the current median, based on the median price for the suburb and affordability. That's
okay. So what what are some options then? What are you sort of saying to people? Let's say someone comes in and talks to any of you guys there, whoever's got a thought on this. Says, good news, I've been saving hard. I haven't been eating avocado on toast. I've only been having 3 coffees a day, and I've saved up $100,000. What are the options that are available to them, in terms of not having to overextend themselves, in terms of, taking a 95% plus loan? What do we sort of see? What are the options? What are people doing? And what do you guys recommend to everyone?
James, as I mentioned, I think on one of our previous things, is that people need to start looking realistically. People, a lot of young people initially think they want to get onto this big block of land, the quarter acre sort of stuff, and that's becoming unaffordable. And start looking at apartments, and there seems to be a definite trend where people are actually questioning the hard rule that Aussie's got, that you've got to have your quarter acre block and you raise your kids out there. There's a lot of people are actually reassessing that and saying, in fact, our living standard, we can actually get something of a really high quality in the city and be able to afford it.
Okay. So, Jack, what you were running through, when we're talking about those median prices, that's obviously taking into account freestanding homes that make up the majority of the housing stock, as well as apartments. So, if we broke that down, as Greg was saying, into, median price of apartments, then I'm guessing, Sydney would go from 5 suburbs to probably, 150, and likewise here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So it's also showing that I think that the variance between freestanding houses and apartments is about over a 50% variance in price. So people are definitely looking at that swing, going, hang on a second, we can get something really nice in a city at a lot cheaper than the freestanding house out somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. Interesting question here from Jonathan. He said, how big is a quarter acre block? Greg, you're obviously showing your age. I still talk about acres. It's not the metric system. An acre is 4,000 square meters. So the great Aussie dream of a quarter acre block was a 1,000 square meter block. So for those of you that are looking now, you'll know that in today's market, in the inner city areas, a 600 square meter block is a huge block in its own right. We're down to 300. Our friend, the Big Mac, his place, I think in Port Melbourne's on about 150 or 200 square metre block, and that's considered a big block in those areas. Same with Albert Park and so forth. So, the quarter acre block really is a dream of Greg's vintage. Those that are a little bit younger, like myself and Jack, the quarter acre block was probably never even a factor that we could even dream about. Yeah. So interesting, that stat there. Obviously, Jonathan, hopefully that helps you to give you an idea with that. So, Greg, when we do talk about it, I've said a lot. We're obviously, big proponents. There's no hiding it. We're all about apartments. That's what we love. That's where we see the greatest value is for people, whether they're investing or looking for that home. What are some of the reasons that you're hearing, and perhaps anyone else on the panel who has it, in terms of buyers that have come through and thought they wanted a house and you've shown them the lifestyle of an apartment, or vice versa, where you know, you've had people come in that say, I don't want to live in a freestanding house. You know, I love apartment living. You know, what are some of those reasons why they're finding that is a great family home option?
You hit the nail on the head. You actually used the word lifestyle. Okay,
so I've answered my own question, have I?
Let me just elaborate more on that. So when you're in places like South Bank, for instance, and we can give it a plug, right on your doorstep, you've got parks, you've got entertainment, you've got restaurants, you've got everything. You don't actually have to get in a car and drive anywhere. So people start looking at it, they're saying, hang on a second, I don't have to mow the lawn, I don't have to clean anything, everything is taken care of, there's community within these buildings, you've got facilities, you've got all these things, and then you start looking at, hang on, this is actually a good lifestyle. So that the word lifestyle is perfect. So you've got the parks, you've got all the facilities, and you're not driving everywhere, and you're actually spending more time with your family if you're living in and be able to live that lifestyle. So I think people are reassessing that.
Yeah. So look, those of you that follow us on the socials as well will see we've started doing some insight on the great lifestyle that we have here in inner city Melbourne. Lucas showed us one of his favourite places to go to lunchtime. And Greg, you, me, and Derek, you're taking us for a workout Friday morning, I think, aren't you, in the park just across the road from us, and going to put us through our paces. So those of you that love seeing those videos, check it out. We will post it, probably Friday or Saturday if we don't keel over and die. Greg was a former bodybuilder, so he's going to hammer us to death. So those of you that love seeing that, look out for that in the next few days, and we're looking forward to that.
James, can I sort of butt in a little bit? I've spoken with quite a few people lately as well, and I would go even a little bit deeper and say people are impressed with what's offered within the building, like having your gym, having your pool, having your barbecue facilities, having your concierge, your security. And people love these things. People love feeling security and knowing that they don't have to go anywhere. Whatever they want to do is within the building as well. So that's another big plus that a lot of people are sort of commenting when we talk to them about apartments.
Yeah. I think,
James, can I just one second? Yeah, because I want to mention as well, as Lucas said, with a great location with apartment, you have add a more value which you're paying for this property. For example, you got a space, you can have the gym, you swim, you got a good view, you got a restaurant in your doorstep, and you don't really need to do all the maintenance. So that's some value that people have to look. If you buy a standing house in the further suburb, and you need to fix your house, you need to clean your garden, which sometimes annoy me.
Yeah, I know, Jack, you and Lucas always tell me about the list of jobs you get for the weekend, and you be free of that. I think that was an interesting point you mentioned, Lucas, too. I know I go home during the week and I walk in and I say hello to my girls and everyone, and you know what I hear back from them? Donuts. So it is nice, as you mentioned. Concierge at least says hello to you, responds to you. You go and open the door and your family doesn't even respond to you. So that is a nice touch. You can at least feel welcome as you go into your building, even if once you get into your home, everyone else ignores you. Okay, so look, just conscious we're getting close on time. I've seen a lot of questions, I think circling back to what we were talking about in terms of forecast, demand, supply, and so forth, which obviously is, the underlying principle for all homeowners. So, we're seeing, I went through as to what we're actually seeing in terms of transactions with the auction results and so forth. There's been a lot of talk about perhaps supply, coming on as the market gets stronger and stronger, and that outstripping the demand. What are we sort of seeing at the moment? How's that tracking, and what can we expect over, the next or the rest of this year?
Well, James, it's still showing quite clearly that demand is outstripping listings. So there are more buyers out there than what there are properties for sale. So that's continuing to push prices and stuff like that. There's no signs of things slowing down very quickly. There's still a strong demand from buyers out there and a shortage of listings.
Okay, so anyone that was concerned that perhaps this was short-lived, even with this onslaught of new listings and new supply coming, we're still seeing excessive demand or demand over that supply. albeit perhaps, I think we touched on it last week, instead of there being maybe 20 people bidding at an auction, there's maybe 10, which is still a great number. Is that sort of what we're expecting to see for the rest of the year as well?
I think so. They're showing that there's some people, even though the listings have reduced a bit, and there's still people are scared that they're not going to get in on time. The FOMO thing that
Lucas's favourite saying. He loves rolling that out, doesn't he?
FOMO thing, the fear of missing out. Interest rates are still very low. There's also the lack of listings is a lot of people that are not putting their homes on the market because they see the market's going up and they might be afraid of even not being able to get into something else. So there's just this huge up-pent demand of people wanting to buy with limited listings. So yeah, the demand's continuing to increase.
Okay, great.
Can I also butt in a little bit?
Of course.
One of the interesting statistics we found when we went out together, James, was the number of first home buyers.
How much McDonald's you eat every day was a very interesting statistic. I'll tell you that.
We tried the new menu, but don't worry.
Yes.
Look, it's very interesting, and maybe not everybody realizes, but first home buyers, it's a very huge piece of the pie. I mean, in Victoria, between December to March, we had $8.2 billion worth in transactions to first home buyers. That's 51.8% up from the same time last period. 77% of them bought a property up to $600,000. So again, there's very limited property, if any, within the location they want, with the lifestyle they want, that meets that criteria. So, you can never just come up with enough properties to fill that gap.
Okay, interesting stuff there. So look, we're getting close to the end. So for those of you that are wondering, what are the next steps? I'm going to run through that in a moment before we close this out. But just think now, if you've got any other questions, get them in because we will hang around at the end. But just really think about, what we've talked about here. There's a lot of great information as to what might be the next good steps for you. All right, so let's close this out. Lucas, the budget, Victorian state budget here, it was all about property. There was obviously the great new initiatives around mental health, albeit with an increase in payroll tax, which is one of my most dreaded taxes that we pay. But, there was a lot of interesting things that were, what could be seen by the property industry in general as, some perhaps less than favourable increases in the property taxes. However, you've sort of drilled through into each of them, and you've come up with a bit of an insight for all our callers on here as to how, what they were and what effects they might have, as well as some of the great new rebates or incentives that are being offered as well. Do you want to sort of run through a couple of those for the listeners on the line?
Look, I mean, it's very easy to read a heading and say, "Oh my God, what have they done? They destroyed the housing factor." But for an example, a big thing that's out there and it's on everybody's mind is how the stamp duty increased from 5.5% to 6.5%. But if we take a closer look, this only applies to properties worth over $2 million. And to put a number on it, that equates to 3.5%. That's 3.5% of all property transactions that are happening. So yes, there is an increase, but it's not so much to affect the majority of people. I think it's our treasurer is a little bit like Robin Hood. Let me take a little bit from the extra rich and give to the poor and give to the rest.
Now, Robin Hood, tell us what's he given to the poor?
Well, he's taking money from developers. For an example, they said if a property that you own all of a sudden gets rezoned and from industrial becomes residential, and all of a sudden overnight you made tens of millions, it's going to charge you more tax on that. So taking the money.
I think I mean, we are developers, but I think that's a great one to really, factor in that uplift in value. So fantastic.
That's right. So they're taking sort of money from that and money from people that buy multi-million homes and creating it giving it back to the community, creating roads and doing other works that need to better their community.
Okay. And in terms of some of these incentives, rebates, offsets of taxes that are also for those people looking to buy a home, what were a couple of the key ones that came out?
Look, I mean, as we talked before, the first home buy incentives that was extended. If you're a single parent, you can buy a property with just a 2% deposit, which is, pretty much unheard of. So it's helping the people. As far as land tax, again, it's only for those high-end properties. And when you buy apartments, you get more benefits than before, really, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
And
very
obviously, my favourite one was the stamp duty. That if you buy a property in the local government area of Melbourne, which is effectively Melbourne CBD, South Bank, Docklands, and St Kilda Road, and it is brand new, that 50% reduction in stamp duty, that continues on for another 12 months. So that's really a great incentive there for anyone that's thinking about it. You've now got, you did have only 30 days to go. You've now got an extra 12 months to find that right property for you, get that value. And as we said, there's a reason why it will be a fantastic purchase. It's about the lifestyle. It's about getting that great value. So I think that really is something that, if you are looking at a property, say is, 700,000, stamp duty, is $35,000, $40,000, that's halved. You're saving 20 grand. So, that's a great amount of money that you can perhaps put towards, I don't know, an overseas holiday in 2030 when we're finally allowed to travel overseas again, or whatever it is. You might even be able to upgrade to something better you didn't think you could afford before.
But James, yes, you're right. It has been extended, but that doesn't mean postpone buying your property, because there's two big issues here. FOMO, of course, you could miss out because there's a lot of competition out there for the same kind of property, talking dollar value. And also, we just talked before, we're expecting the property prices to go up 13% by the end of the year. So just because it's been extended for another year, that's great news, but do not postpone it or sit back and relax because you've got another year to go. Because if the property does go up 13% as anticipated, guess what? You might not have enough deposit to afford it anymore.
Very good advice. I think on that note, let's wrap up the question section. I can see we've just gone past the top of the hour. So as I said at the start, today is very much about you. All our listeners and people joining us either through Facebook or live here with us on Zoom. Even those of you that are here on the recording. What we want to do is give you our knowledge, help you understand what's going on and how that may affect you. For those of you that got value out of today, you're probably thinking, okay, well, how do I move forward? What's the next logical step? It's really, really straightforward. 2021, we are almost at the halfway mark. So, if you've been procrastinating, you haven't been doing anything about it, or, you're really wishing that you want to get focused and start moving those home ownership dreams of yours forward, we're here to help. Now, what I can tell you is that we've been doing this for a long time, and there is 3 ways that you can move forward from here. The number one most popular and favorite thing for everyone is to do nothing. There's a reason you don't own a home right now, not because you can't afford it, not because you can't find the right property. Sure, for some of you that might be the case. For the vast majority, it's because you're not making changes. If you continue to do the same thing over and over, don't expect a different result. So, if you want to make some changes, don't continue doing the same thing. Second most popular thing to do by everyone is to go out, take on board what we've said, reset yourself, refocus. And this is what I hope you do at a bare minimum, is take that on board and go and try and put that into practice yourself. Now, that's great. Often people say, I don't need any help. And for some people, that is the case. You will do very well. For the vast majority of people, you want to fast forward this, let us help you. As Jerry Maguire said, help me help you. The reason for that is that Lucas mentioned, he brought it up, and it was a great segue into this section. When prices are going up, every day, every week, every month, every quarter that you take longer in that journey looking through, prices are going up. So, whatever you're thinking about buying today is going to cost you more tomorrow. So, the idea of working with us is that we can help you on that journey. We can cut through a lot of that white noise and the red tape and really present some great value to you in that journey. So how are we going to do that? Well, the easiest and perhaps the most active way that we can do it is to meet face-to-face and go through this one-on-one. So what I've done, I've set aside time in everyone's diaries over the next 5 days, dedicated just for these one-on-one catch-ups with everyone on the phone today. Thank you, Bruce. I can just see you've just booked one come through. Another one there. They're coming through thick and fast. So these are great catch-ups. You know, if you're unsure about it, you're not sure, do I have time? What do I want to do? You can come and meet us face-to-face in our office. You can do it over the phone. You can do it on FaceTime or Zoom, whatever suits you. You know, typically they take about 15 to 20 minutes. So they're short, they're sharp. It's really just to introduce ourselves, meet you, and see if you're going to be the right fit for us. You know, we can't help everyone, but ultimately, you know, if you've been in today's session, you found value, and you're prepared to actually take action, do things, roll up your sleeves, and take those actions that we put forward, then it will make sense. You know, we talked about knowledge. You know, everything that we try to do is to help you be able to make those decisions. You know, it's not about us doing it for you, whilst we can do that. It's being able to give you the power, the experience, and the confidence to make those decisions. So, you know, if you are hungry, you love what you're hearing, and you want to be able to move forward, then these are great sessions for you. You know, it's really straightforward. However, we can't help everyone. So, you know, we've got to make sure that we're going to be helping the people that are the right fit for us. We've only got so much time. So jump in and book one of those sessions. If you're wondering how do you do it, really, really simple. There's 3 ways. The first one to do is there should be a link in the chat. So jump in the chat now, click on that link, and that will take you to the booking page. Those of you that are here live on Zoom, your web browser should have redirected to a booking page. I'm pretty sure that's how everyone's been booking that I've seen come up on the bottom of my screen now. Lastly, if you're unsure as to your availability, you don't have your diary, or you've got to duck off now, I will send you a follow-up email at the end of this session. With that link, you can jump on there. For those of you that are on Facebook, obviously you won't have access to any of these tools. Join us on Zoom live next week, and we will share that link with you. Or feel free to reach out, drop a comment, and we'll send through the booking link so you can get one of those sessions. So look, we have gone a bit over time. There was a lot to go through. It was a great session. As I said, we were trying something new again. Hopefully it was much better, the resolution and focus for those of you here with the TV screen of my setup here. So from me and everyone on the panel, thank you very much for attending today. I know that you're busy. I know there's a lot of things that you could be doing. So it means a lot to us. We love seeing so many familiar and friendly faces join us again. It lets us know that we're doing a great job for you. So thank you very much, and goodbye for now, and look forward to seeing you again next week, next month, next quarter, same time, same place, question time, 2:30 every Wednesday.